Justice, where are you? Michael and Linda are here.
Love you, Linda.
The world is justice. Will we ever find justice?
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing
Will
"Oh
we
Happy
know
Day."
justice when we see it? To be and Damila lead the way, hoping justice will win the day. Listener clues, finding justice where we can. Join us now, we're on the run. Justice is waiting, we'll see it done.
Will the deliberating jurors and the defendant please remain standing? Everyone else in the courtroom may be seated.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
You may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Bryant Walshe, have the deliberating jurors reached a unanimous verdict?
We have.
Thank you, sir. If you could hand that to the court officer, please. Your Honor, may the verdict be recorded.
It may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Bryant Walshe, Norfolk Superior Court Criminal Indictment Number 2023-0091. As to count one, wherein the defendant Bryant Walshe is charged with murder in the first degree, what say the jury? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what, sir?
Murder in the first degree.
Murder in the first degree, so say you, Mr. Foreperson.
I do.
Guilty of murder in the first degree, so say all deliberating jurors.
I do.
Thank you. If you could hand that back to the court officer, please.
This time we move to poll the jurors.
The jury may be polled.
Thank you. Juror number one, juror in seat number one. As to the verdict of murder in the first degree, is that your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror number two, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number three, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number four, as to the charge of murder in the first degree, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Mr. Foreperson, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 8, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 9, is that your verdict? Yes. Juror in seat number 10, is that your verdict? Juror in seat number 13?
Yes.
Is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 14, is that your verdict?
Yes.
And last juror, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Your Honor, all jurors answer affirmatively that the guilty of first degree is their verdict.
The verdict may be recorded. Please
Thank
be
you.
seated.
Seated.
So jurors, I want to thank you for your service on this case. I know that it went a little bit more quickly than we were expecting, but your service has been substantial. We're in the third week of this trial, and I appreciate all you did to be obedient to those rules that I placed on you and for your conscientious service as jurors in this case. I will be back to meet with you privately in a moment. You should feel a weight lifting off of you right now because I'm releasing of you those requirements. You can talk to anyone about this case or no one at all. You can do whatever research you wish to do about the case or not at all. You go back on social media if you want, news media. And I'm supposed to release you from that burden of being open-minded. But I hope you always go through your lives with open hearts and open minds, new experiences and new people. I'll be back in just a minute to meet with all of you privately. Thank you very much, jurors.
Jurors exiting, all rise. Jurors, follow me, please.
When are we going to be in a position to have the victim impact statements and conduct the sentencing in this case?
Your Honor, I believe that we could do it as early as Wednesday of this week, but I believe if it's available to the court, we can also do Thursday or Friday.
I know that Friday's definitely not a good day for the court because I have other things scheduled. I anticipated the trial was going to be running, so I scheduled other things, although we could do it Friday morning. Does the defense have any preferences to the timing of the sentencing?
Your Honor, given the Commonwealth's recommendations, we'd actually request Wednesday at any point, if that's possible.
All right. I'll just, the only reason that I wouldn't do it on Wednesday is I do want the victim impact statements, regardless of the implications of the jury's verdict. It may have bearing on my sentencing on the other counts to which he pled guilty.
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. All rise.
Matter is continued to December 17th at 9 a.m. for sentence and position.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Court stands in recess.
Thanks, everyone.
As you just heard, Brian Walshe has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the murder of his wife, Anna Walshe, January 1st of 2022. This was a case that had only gone on for a mere 8 days of testimony, all by prosecution witnesses. Defense did not put on a defense on a case. Brian Walshe did not take the stand in his own defense. We do know prior to the trial, he had pled guilty to lying to police in this case and to dismembering and disposing of his wife's body. The jury got this case after lunchtime on Friday. They had one request about evidence and the organization of it. Other than that, no questions. Went home for the weekend and came back this morning. And as you can see, 2 hours after arriving, they have come to a unanimous decision of guilty in the first degree for murder.
And of course, the standard for that offense was premeditation. There had been a lot of question during this trial whether or not the Commonwealth proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Brian Walshe planned to murder his wife. And the jury has come back today to say that they believe he did, finding him guilty of first-degree murder in addition to those 2 other charges he pled guilty to before this trial began.
We were wondering if they would put a second-degree murder charge on the ballot to give the jury a possibility of a slightly lesser sentence. That was something that happened in the Karen Reed trial. You may remember that they added, after all the charges, a charge of OUI, which is in fact what the jury found her guilty of. In this case, they did not need the lesser charge. They in fact have found him guilty of first-degree murder, which is a sentence of life in prison with or without the possibility of parole. That is something upon the judge's discretion. Remember, she will also be sentencing him for the 2 other charges in which he pled guilty on the first day of jury selection. You know, one thing that did happen in this trial immediately after the verdict was read, that did not happen after the verdict was read in the first Karen Reed trial, is that the jury was polled. So we all know that the jury is unanimous in this decision of first-degree murder, convicted Brian Walshe in the death of his wife, Anna Walshe. To remind you, Anna Walshe was merely 39 years old. She was born in Serbia and came over at 22 years old, working in the hospitality industry before moving on to real estate, marrying Brian Walshe and having 3 sons, all of whom are quite young, in elementary school at this point. She was working in D.C., coming back and forth between her home there and her job in D.C. And that was brought up multiple times within this trial in terms of the stress on her. You may remember Brian Walshe was not able to leave the state, barely to leave his home. He had an ankle monitor for his part in art fraud, with a Warhol painting that he sold that was a fake indeed, and had been found guilty on that and was waiting to get his sentence on that crime.
And to underscore the point you just made about the kids, 3 sons, JC, at the time of Anna Walsh's disappearance, all under the age of 6. So Thomas, William, and Brian not only have lost their mother here while they're at a young age, but their father may be going to prison for life. NBC 10 legal analyst Michael Coyne is, I believe, joining us now by phone. Michael, you've heard this verdict today, guilty on first-degree murder. What's your initial reaction?
Well, I don't think anyone is really surprised that he was found guilty of the first-degree murder. Some questioned whether it could even be reduced to second degree so that he'd at some point be eligible for parole. But at the end of the day, the jury relatively quickly came to the conclusion that there was sufficient evidence for premeditation and therefore found him guilty of that, which will, in fact, put him behind bars for the rest of his life.
Michael, when it comes to victim impact statements, which we expect will be Wednesday first thing on 9 a.m., one of the elements of this case was how few people for most of the trial were in that courtroom. Brian had his mother there, but as for people for Anna, she had a handful of friends up on the stand too, I believe, and one person with whom she had an intimate relationship from DC. Other than those 3, who perhaps we can anticipate will speak before the judge, who else would you anticipate would be there, again, knowing that most of her family that we know of is still overseas in Serbia?
Well, she had an awful lot of very close friends. We saw some of that testimony at the conclusion of the government's case. I would not be surprised if they offer letters and some testimony in support of a very severe sentence. You wonder whether anyone is really authorized to speak for the 3 little children who are obviously most impacted by this. And I don't think anyone would question whether a 10-year-old should, in fact, be put under such circumstances to have to testify against their father with respect to the severity of the impact on them. So I think it'll rest with her very close friends and perhaps others who know her well and want to argue for a very severe sentence here.
And Michael, when it comes to sentencing, if I could just interrupt quickly, because you mentioned how the law will guide the judge in sentencing on first-degree murder. But of course, there are 2 other related charges where the defendant has pleaded guilty to. How does that factor into the sentencing, which the judge decided to hold off on until the jury responded with a verdict in this first charge?
Yeah, that's the real question, because on the first-degree murder, it carries with it a life sentence without the benefit of parole. But we saw for juveniles that changed so that they'd at some point be eligible for parole. So on the 2 counts which he has pled guilty to, he faces on the dismemberment charge up to a 20-year sentence, and on the lying to the police, a 3-year sentence. The real question will be, will she sentence him to serve those sentences concurrently or consecutively? So in essence, she could really sentence him to serve life in prison without the benefit of parole, and then when and if that is ever satisfied, to then start serving the 20-year or the 3-year sentence after that's completed, which in essence would ensure that he never is released from prison again.
All right, Michael. As we look toward the sentencing phase on Wednesday, what do you expect the next couple of days to look like for this defense team? I mean, what do they do? Do they have any levers left to pull?
Well, the levers that they have left to pull is to really try to argue that in essence, at some point now, that this was not a premeditated murder, despite what the jury found, and that there are some redeeming qualities about the defendant. I mean, that's their job at the end of the day. So that's the key here, is to try and make a very unsympathetic defendant at least a little bit sympathetic for sentencing purposes.
Michael, if you could just stand by for us. We have Sue O'Connell with us. She's been in the courtroom for much of this trial. Sue, I did not see any emotion register on Brian Walsh's face as the camera was on him when the verdict came down. You were in the room. Describe how that moment was.
Well, actually, when he got up to leave JC and walk out, you could see a pained expression on his face. And what had happened just before that is that the defense went to Brian Walsh's mother, Diana Walsh. Usually she would wait until every day that I've been here, until Brian Walsh gets up and walks out. He would look toward her and nod, then go out and she would follow. But what the defense did this time is that they took her out first, the defense attorneys, and then as Walsh got up, he looked to where his mother had been. She was not there, and he did have what appeared to me to be a more pained look on his face as he walked out. But definitely, very stressful in the courtroom. There were no supporters or friends of family of Anna Walsh in the courtroom, and I think most of us were expecting there might be a verdict today, but it would most likely be at the end of the day. And here a verdict coming in before lunch, and not to be flippant about it, but many courtroom experts will tell you that sometimes the jury waits until after lunch to bring the verdict. So it was a little bit surprising that it happened this morning.
Well, I was going to ask. We all set or what? Need a minute? Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I'm Michael Morrissey, the Norfolk District Attorney, and with me today, standing behind me, some of the most important people in the event you witnessed over the last few weeks and couple of years. I have members of the Cohasset State Police as well as my trial team are with me today. Did an outstanding job. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the jury. This is a very difficult case from the beginning. Take time out of their schedule to hear such days of evidence, complex evidence, and a difficult case, and to come up with the decision they did. Without the jurors, our system doesn't work, and my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of those who participated and the alternates who were chosen as well. I'd like to thank the Cohasset Police, the State Police, the Medical Examiner's Office, and the Crime Lab for their hard work. It was an incredible effort. If you think about what you saw during the trial, there was all sorts of forensic evidence. They left no stone unturned. They viewed 60 witnesses, almost 60 witnesses testified at trial, and they interviewed even more people. So while you saw a good part of what we had, it was only a small fraction of the time and effort that they put in to get that evidence. And they went to dumpsters, to landfills, to dumps as well, to transfer stations, department stores, lumber stores, CVS, just to gather all this evidence, which was critical in this case. And that effort should not be forgotten, and how hard it was. But without those tools and the evidence that they provided us, that the trial team, which I had the utmost confidence, very confident, professional people, long-term prosecutors in the office, had great tools to work with, but they also great people in their own right. And they put on a very, very great case in a difficult setting. Now, we've seen other cases where we've not had a body, but this is the first one I can remember we got a first-degree conviction, and I just want to thank them profusely. I know that a number of them passed up vacations, work holidays, and they know what's expected of them. We took the job to speak for victims, and they did one heck of a job speaking for Anna's family. And I just wanted to also to say we did hear from Anna's sister, and her comment was, justice has been served, and we agree wholeheartedly with her comments as well. But they never lost sight of that. And I'd like to just personally thank Greg Connor, Tracy Cusack, and Yaz, and we have the Cohasset Police, Harrison, and the State Police, and the head of our victim services, Kristen Collins. Also Laura McLaughlin, who's not here. She did a lot of the early work on the case, and so we had a great team, and I just wanted to profusely thank them. It's been a great day for us in the office. I'd ask Greg if he wants to say a word or two. Greg Connor.
Thank you, Michael. It was a great honor to work with Tracy and Ann on this trial, two of the finest lawyers I've ever got to know, and also to go against Kelly and Larry, who were extremely extremely good lawyers. But I want to say thank you to our law enforcement partners, but in particular, one person who worked on this case day after day from the beginning was Sergeant Harrison Schmidt. When Cohasset lost one of their own, they stopped everything and tried to find this woman, and one person never gave up on that case, and it would be Sergeant Harrison Schmidt. Thank you very much.
Harrison is here today, so thank you, Harrison. So I just want to end and close by, let's not lose sight of the fact that Anna's 3 young children will be without a mother. And especially at this time, difficult time of year, and hopefully going in the future, that we all wish them a bright future going ahead. But let's remember in a special way the loss they suffered, and thank you all for coming. I am not going to answer any questions of that. That's for another.
Any more reaction from her mother or her family?
We just heard from the sister. That was the only, so I passed it on. We heard that they called, and I passed it on to you.
Will they be making impact statements?
The judge, they're working with the trial team to schedule impact statements. I can't tell you what form they're going to come in, but the opportunity has been extended, and I expect we will hear something, and they're working on that now.
What do you think actually for sentencing?
Excuse me?
For sentencing?
Well, there's a mandatory sentence of life, so, but there are other issues. They also developed other charges, as many of you have now heard, that there was a plea earlier to other charges, so that's being worked on. So you'll hear from the lawyers at the time of sentencing.
Mr. Morrissey, do you consider this a win after the county trial?
Actually brought this to guilty? You have no body, circumstantial evidence. What do you think was the strongest part of the case that convinced the jury this was guilty?
I don't think there's any one thing. I think it was the combined effort of working together with our law enforcement partners, the ME and other professionals, the work that was done on the forensics, I think was important. But actually, without that and without people explaining it in the courtroom, we'd have nothing. And I think they all did an awesome job. And I'm just going to say one other thing, because someone mentioned, it's not about winning or losing. It's about getting the right answer. And this was the right answer. And so we don't look at cases as a wins or losses. We look at getting justice for someone. So let's not lose sight of that fact.
Walshe pled guilty to 2 charges ahead of time, right when jury selection was about to start. Did that change the way you approach this case and your attorneys? Obviously, they have been looking at 3 different charges. Now it was 1 murder charge.
You can hear right from the
case was always going to be presented in the same way. The evidence was the evidence, and we wanted to make sure the jury had everything that they needed to make a determination. The change of plea was an interesting dynamic, but when it came down to it, we wanted to make sure the jury had all the facts.
Craig, what do you think it was? The online searches? Do you think it was a surveillance video? What do you think?
Or the emotional testimony?
I can't tell you. That would be a question for the jurors. We tried to give them all the information we had. We had it from multiple different factors, whether it be surveillance video, the text messages, the internet searches. But what we had was a very thorough investigation that gave the lawyers in this case an excellent chance to try and give the jury what they needed.
Were you surprised that you didn't testify? What did you want to ask him on the stand?
I don't know if I can comment on that.
You don't have enough time for that.
I think that's probably better not said.
But were you surprised that he didn't?
The judge was.
I think it's always up to the defendant to make that decision. I think it's the hardest decision the defendant can make. And so I'm sure he put a lot of thought into it. We were prepared that if he did testify, we had a number of questions we wanted to have answered, but we understand it's his right not to.
So the question.
Yeah, over the past couple of years, a lot has been made of your office and the handling of different cases. Do you hope what happened here today restores some of that perceived lack of faith the public has?
I don't know. One loss of a highly visibility case determines what happens in our office. We handle cases all the way from the bottom to the top. We treat them all the same. There's no such thing as a single important case. This was a critical case, and you saw on display some of the smartest people and some of the toughest workers and investigators who have always been with me. So I think that sometimes you don't like what a jury has to say, but that's our system of justice. You present the case to a jury, and you have to abide by. At least I do. I took a constitutional oath. So I would just say today, I clearly are much happier with the outcome today, and I'm very happy with the work that was done by the professionals who work both in law enforcement and the district attorney's office. And really, I couldn't be happier. So
a lot has been made of you personally, obviously, over the last couple of years. We haven't really had a chance to hear from you. How have you been doing, and what does this say today?
Well, it's the good or bad news is, having been in our office for a number of years in politics, unlike my time on Beacon Hill, I get to speak out. But many of you know that now as a district attorney, that if I speak out, that I interfere with an individual's right to a fair trial, then that obviously weighs heavily upon me. So I am now free to speak today on this trial with some limitations. And so not hearing from me, obviously, then I don't want to tip the jury or tip the scales and let those cases go forward without putting a thumb on the scales of justice. And, you know, I took the job to speak for victims, and we focus on victims. And that's what I'm going to continue to do through my tenure. So I just want to thank you all. I know this is, you know, a long period of time. We have to come to the courthouse, and we do have some calls to make and try to reach out to some other family members and some other people. But thank you all, and hopefully it brings to a conclusion a very sad chapter in the history of Anna's family.
This is someone's glove. Someone's glove? Is this your glove, buddy? Yeah. Let me grab it.
Yeah, I was over here setting up, and then I look up and they're walking away. No, that's right. I didn't screw you, someone screwed you. It's all good.
No, I don't hold it personally. But I'll get you back. No, that's true.
Me?
No,
What'd I do?
I was messing with him. I wanted you to tap me when I was getting in your shot. I was trying to get as close as I could.